So one of the biggest things that a lot of founders and solopreneurs struggle with is consistent content creation, especially if they have a lot on their plate in terms of technical stuff or just administrative stuff. Today, I want to show you an automation that I built in order to create posts using AI into LinkedIn, backed up by research using tools like Perplexity. And not only that, but these posts include pretty high quality infographics that were created using OpenAI's image API. So here's one that I just created. And if you take a look at it, it's got a lot of information in it. And also the image that was generated, it looks like a pretty decent infographic, although I wish there was more color in it, but you get the idea. So we're going to get some text in it that is referencing back to whatever the text says. And to give you a quick look on how things are working in the backend, this is the automation right here. So to quickly run you down how this works, and then we're going to be building it together. Basically, there's a form submission that takes inputs such as a topic, a length, and also what the target audience for this post is going to be. Then we'd have a post writer that's in charge of using Perplexity to do some research on that topic and generate the text for the post. Then we have an image prompter that's an expert basically in creating a prompt for the image API that's going to be creating a infographic. Then we pass that prompt into the OpenAI API for image creation. We add that into a Google Sheets so that we have the topic, the content, and the image URL in Google Drive. And then we can decide if we want to post it or not. This is sort of like a human in the loop automation, but also it's good because we get to double check if that's what we want to post. And if there's something that we don't like in the post itself, we can go ahead and just edit here directly before posting it. Then once we change this status into post to LinkedIn, what's going to happen is we're going to trigger this other workflow down here. That's basically just going to download the file from Google Drive and it's going to create a post. And this is what the result's going to look like. So let's get right into how to build this. So over here, we have a brand new workflow and we're going to start off by creating the form. So we're going to go into n8n form and we're going to create a trigger for that. And we don't want to change anything up here like the authentication. We're going to give this form a title. As a title, we can give it something like create LinkedIn research post. Research post. And then we can just give it a short description like fill out following form to generate a research LinkedIn post. Topic. And then we're going to add our elements, which are going to be the inputs that we're going to have in the form. So the first one's going to be a topic. We're just going to leave that as text. We're going to make these, all of them are going to be required. Then we can do length. We're going to have different length options for the posts. So for these, we might want to do a drop down with multiple options. The options that we can have are short, medium, and long. So short, we can say that's around 80 words. We can do a medium, which can be around 200 words. And then we can have a long one, which can be around 350 words. We're also going to make it required, like we said. And then we're going to have an audience or target audience. Also text and required. So if we take a look at what the form looks like, if I hit on execute, it's going to pop up over here. You see we're going to have a topic, the length, and the target audience. And I'm just going to submit this just so that we can pin some data. And that way we can just manipulate the whatever goes after in the workflow a little bit easier. So topic, let's say, we'll do the same topic as the example. So how is Sora 2 affecting credibility in social media platforms? We can do a short one just so that it's not too long. And then our target audience can this time be, let's just do like AI enthusiast. So gonna hit submit. We got our data over here. We're gonna go ahead and pin that and move on. So next up, we're gonna have the agent that's going to be talking to Perplexity. So make sure you select over here, define below, because we're gonna need a specific prompt. And also before I do anything, we're gonna connect the chat model. So I'm just gonna be using OpenAI. 4.1 mini should work okay. I got my credentials set up. If you don't know how to get your OpenAI credentials, it's very simple. You're just going to playground.openai.com, log in. Then you're going to go into API keys. Then what you want to do is you want to create a new secret key. Then you're going to give it a name. It's going to give you the key. And then you're just going to come back over here. And create a new credential. Put your API key. You don't need to fill anything over here. And then you'll be all set. So we're going to go ahead and write the prompt. I'm just going to paste it over here and we're going to read it. So really, we don't want to put our main prompt under the user message. We want to go ahead and click on add option and a system message. This is where our main instructions are going to go. And whatever our input is going to be, which are whatever the user submits in the form, is what's going to be going under the user message. So right here's the prompt. It's very simple. As you can see, I'm using Markdown format just because this is a format that's readable by LLMs. So let's say one hashtag means heading 1s, two hashtags means heading 2, and it just kind of like separates what the different sections of a prompt are and a little bit more organized. So let's read through it. So it says, you are an agent specializing in creating professional, educational, and engaging LinkedIn posts. The objectives are always being by conducting a real-time research using Perplexity tool to gather the most accurate, up-to-date information on the topic. Then based on the research, we're going to create a post in a professional tone, clear and easy to read, educational, light on emojis. We don't want to give away that this is AI. I mean, using emojis is usually a very easy giveaway because they tend to overdo it and overuse it. Then we're going to have containing relevant hashtags to improve visibility and with a clear CTA. Then the output instruction says your only output should be the final LinkedIn post text. Do not include any explanations, notes, or anything beyond the post itself. Then it says do not include any direct citations on your posts, i.e. URLs and direct links. Because we're going to be getting, when we make a call to Perplexity, we're going to be getting the information that we want plus citations. So we don't really want to include the direct links, but if it wants to mention it, then it'll go ahead and do that. We just don't want to be linking the sources directly. Although this is optional, I think it looks a little cleaner without it. Then we give it an example workflow on what the steps should be. So receive a topic, use the tool, format, and create the post. So then our user message is just going to be the post topic, post length, and target audience. So let me go ahead and make it an expression, and then we're just going to drag in whatever we're getting from the form. So the topic is going to go over here, that space over there, the length, and the target audience. So with that, we're pretty much set with the prompt itself. Now we're going to go ahead and create the tool. This is going to be an HTTP request. We're going to be calling the API for Perplexity directly. So I'm going to show you how to get your API key before we set this up. So if I go into Perplexity or API docs, you're going to click this second link, get started, API reference, and then we want to use the chat completions endpoint. This is basically doing a request as if you were doing it through their interface. If you have never used Perplexity and don't know what it is, it's basically like a ChatGPT that does research on the web whenever you ask a question, and it returns you a citation. So if I say something like, what are the latest news on Sora 2? You're going to see it's going to go through a bunch of websites, and it's going to give you an answer with citations. So it's pretty good to get up-to-date information. And so what you want to do is you want to log in or create an account if you don't have one. I'm just going to go log in into mine. Then you want to go into account, API. So then what you want to do is you want to click on API keys. And then over here, you're going to be able to create one. You're basically going to give it a name. So we can just say like n8n tutorial, create key. And you're just going to copy it from over here. Go back. And I'm just going to put it on a sticky note just so that we know where to put it once we start filling up the HTTP requests. So sticky note. And I'm going to delete it after the video, so don't try to use it. So this is what we're going to do over here. If we go back to the chat completions, you're going to see that there's going to be all this code and all this documentation on how to use this endpoint. But really all you got to do is make sure that over here on the right, you click on CURL. You're going to copy that and then import CURL in n8n, paste it, import. And this is going to make it very easy. As you see, it's already pre-filled for us. And before we go any further, we want to go ahead and replace this token over here with our API key. So I'm just going to copy that. Looks good. Let me actually rename this Perplexity tool. And then we're going to have a body. So if you see here, there's already some information pre-filled. And you can see there's a role system and then a role user. So whenever you're prompting LLMs through like API, there's different roles depending on how precise you want to be in the answer that you get. But for us, we don't really need a system. We're just going to be making a request as if we're the user. And so if you see, there's a Sonar Deep Research. We don't really need the Deep Research for this case. We're just going to go with Sonar Pro, which is just their model. And then you'll see that the default question on the example is how many stars are in our galaxy. So this is where we want to make it dynamic, and we want to have the AI agent actually fill this up for us depending on the questions that were submitted on the form. So I'm just going to paste the function, and then I'm going to explain you guys how it works. And so it looks like it's not picking it up as an expression yet. So we want to go over here, change this from fixed to expression. And you see now it's red because it's not running, and it says undefined because we haven't run it yet. The agent's going to pre-fill this information. So let me explain to you how this from AI function works and why it can be very powerful. So first of all, the function is called from AI. Then the first parameter is going to be prompt, which is just the name of like the variable, and it's like a reference for the AI agent. So if this was to be in a case, let's say it's a message or something, you might want to put the variable name as a message instead of prompt. As you see here, that's just the key. Then you want to add a description and then a type. You can also have a default value, but we don't really need it because it's going to be different every single time. So we can skip that. And if you see, we have our description as prompt sent to Perplexity to research on user's request topic. And then we want it to be string. Because this is JSON, we want to make sure it's a string. So I'm going to save this. We should be all good to go. I'm going to test this out. And so you can see here's our output. Sora 2 is shaking the foundation of social media credibility by making it tough to tell real from fake. And you see it's just a short post that it came up with. But if we go into the logs, we can see what we got back from the Perplexity tool when it called. So the input that the agent gave it was how is Sora 2 affecting credibility in social media platforms, which is pretty much the topic that we gave it. And then if we look at the output, you can see there's citations, there's search results, and it looks a little bit messy, but it's okay because the agent's actually really good at reading this. So the content is going to be Sora 2 is fundamentally undermining credibility. So this is mainly what the agent's going to focus on, and also some of the citations and try to connect the dots together. But so now we got the first step done. We got our post created. Now we want to create another agent that's going to take care of creating an infographic or an image that's going to resonate with whatever we got back from Perplexity. So I'm going to grab another agent. You can name this one image prompting or image prompter. Same thing. We want to define it below. Prompt user message is going to be the input, and our prompt is going to be the system message. So same thing. I'm just going to paste it in, and we'll read through it really quick. So we're going to have an overview. You're an AI agent that transforms LinkedIn posts into visual prompt descriptions. Read and analyze the given LinkedIn post. Create a clear, compelling graphic prompt used with a text to image generator, which is the OpenAI image API. Then we have some output instructions. And another thing is that we're giving it the date. And this is just so that, for example, it doesn't confuse the date that's today with like 2024. A lot of these models are trained in old data. So if you don't specify, they might go ahead and put in their prompt like it's 2024 or something like that. And we should actually do the same thing in the other agent so that we're getting the most up-to-date data, which we already are. But just to make sure that we don't get any old data, we can say note that today's date is, and we're just going to paste in that function over there. Pretty simple prompt. Before we go any further, we're going to add OpenAI chat model. Again, just going to be using 4.1 mini. It's one of the cheapest ones and it works pretty well. So we'll just use that. We don't really need a tool here, but we do need a user message. So our user message is just going to be the output that we got from the other agent. So we're just going to map that in there. You can be a little bit more specific by saying LinkedIn post. And I'm going to run this just to show you guys an example. There we have it. Let's take a look at it. A sleek, modern infographic with a split screen design. Left side shows a vibrant, hyper-realistic AI-generated video from subtly glitching. So this looks pretty good. So I'm going to pin it so that we can test it later on. And we're now going to move on to generating the image. So for that, I'm going to go down here. And we're going to need an HTTP request. You might think that because it's OpenAI that we're going to be using, we might have an endpoint native in n8n for that, but we have generated an image, which only really uses DALL-E 3. I don't know if GPT image 1 is the one that we'll be using, but we can test it actually, because I'm not sure. When I made this, I didn't really look into it and I just went straight into the API documentation. So why don't we map this in here? hit execute, and we wait. Maybe we don't have to do all the HTTP request stuff, so we'll wait for that. And note that this might take a little long, so usually I would say between 30 seconds and 1 minute. So there we go. Let's take a look at it. Okay, this is not too bad. We got some formatting issues over here. But yeah, this is the model, so we don't have to do an HTTP request. Let me see what options we get over here. Resolution. I don't know if resolution means the size, but we have quality. Let's put it on high. I'm assuming it's going to take a little longer. It might use more tokens, but that's good. We're gonna this can just be name generated image. Then what we need to do is we need to upload this into Google Drive so that we can then put it into Google Sheets and just put everything together. So for that, we're gonna go ahead and use a drive, upload a file. And then if you don't have a credential, it's a little bit complex creating a credential for Google Drive. Unfortunately, there's no 2auth login for Google Drive. There's one for Google Sheets. But if you don't know how to create a Google Drive API key or a client ID and a client secret, it's basically you have to go into Google Cloud and do it all inside there, creating a web app. There's tons of videos on YouTube. So if you don't know how to do it, I encourage you to look it up. I won't go through it in here because it's quite a lengthy process. It might be a little bit confusing, but if you find a video and just follow along, you'll get it right. So now we're going to give this a name, and we can just keep it as data. I'm just going to leave it on my drive. And then for folders, you can go ahead and just choose whatever folder you want. I'm okay with just putting it straight in there. So I'm going to execute the step. And so it looks like it's generating the image again, because you basically can't pin like binary data in n8n, which is a little bit unfortunate. When you have steps like this, it does take a little long for testing. But once you get it right the first time, then it goes pretty smooth. So we're going to wait, and we're going to see how much it's changed since we put the high quality option in there. So it looks like the image got uploaded. I'm actually going to check it over here in the web view link. So let me open that up on a new tab. AI generated videos challenge digital trust, balancing innovation and credibility. Okay, it's actually very similar. I didn't see much change from the previous one, so why don't we just go ahead and switch it back to medium. And now I'm going to pin this data. And so there's another step here that's important, and it's that we want to make the file shareable or accessible by anyone with the link. That's just so that we can then, if we approve the post, we can download it in n8n again and then post it. If we don't do this, then the API might not accept the request because the file is private. So that's a very simple step. You're just going to go again, drive, share file. We can just map the ID. Then we're going to do reader, anyone. Execute that step. We're pretty much going to get the same output. So here's our output. You see it's only like a confirmation that it was successful. Now we're going to go into Sheets and map everything in, which is going to be append a row in Sheets. We need to first create the Google Sheet, so let's go ahead and do that. This is the one I used for the demo, but it's very simple, just so you guys know how to do it as well. These are going to be your headers. So we're going to have a topic, content, image URL, file ID, status, and date posted. So what you want to do is you want to come over here to the right and hit on blank table. And I'm just going to paste it in, but you're going to have to write it, each header. And then we're going to go here on status and edit the column type. We're going to make this a drop down, and we're going to have two options. Option one is going to be post to LinkedIn. And then option two is just going to be posted, which is just going to be the confirmation that it got posted into LinkedIn. So give those some colors. Give this a name. I'm just going to call it demo LinkedIn post chain. Hit enter. Then I'm going to go back into n8n. Look for that file in here. So here's what I was talking about. So if you go into the Google Sheets, create a credential, you see the sign in with Google, which makes things easier. I don't know why n8n doesn't have that for Google Drive. So it's definitely easier for Google Sheets. Now I'm just going to hit my personal account, going to look for the document, demo LinkedIn post gen, and then the sheet's just going to be sheet 1. I'm not really going to rename it. But then here we're going to be able to fill out our information. So the topic's just going to be whatever we submitted. The content's going to be what the agent generated. Unfortunately, I might have to run this one more time. So I'm me go ahead and do that. So I got some output here. It's going to be the content, the image URL. That's going to be what we get here. It's going to be web view link, file ID. We're going to need that in order to download it later on. Status, we're just going to leave that blank, and date post here, we're going to leave that blank. We're not going to be setting those because we're going to change their values once we actually create the post. So why don't I go ahead and unpin everything, give it a go, see how things look in our Google Sheet. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to execute the workflow. Like I said, it might take a few minutes between the Perplexity tool and generating an image. The request can be quite lengthy, but nothing more than 2 minutes, I would say. So it looks like it's done. Let's go back into the demo sheet. This is going to be the body. So you see a very short post because that was the option I chose. And let's look at the infographic. 80% of AI videos contains false claims. So this one's a little better, and the format's a little better than the other one. And now we're gonna go ahead and configure so that when we click on post to LinkedIn, it actually does so. So for that, let me go back here. And we're gonna need another trigger for that. So search up sheets, go into triggers, on row updated. And then we're gonna leave it on every minute. Make sure you're connected to the right credential. Then with the document, click on the right document, the sheets, this could be sheet 1, row updated, include the new version. We're gonna add an option because we're only gonna be watching the column that's called status. So we'll go ahead and just fill this up with status, and then that should be it. Then we are going to save this, give this a run, and I'm going to change this to post to LinkedIn just so that we can pin the data and generate the workflow. So post to LinkedIn, give it a minute or so, and then you should be seeing, actually that was pretty quick. There we have it, topic, content, image URL. Let me pin this, and I'm going to now create a drive. We pinned it, and now we're gonna look for drive. So we want to download that image before we post it into LinkedIn. So download file. We can use either URL or ID. I just noticed we map both into the sheet, but I'm just gonna do URL. Map it in there. If I hit execute step, we're gonna see the image here again. So you can see. Now we're gonna go into LinkedIn. And we're gonna use the only node that's create a post. So this is very important. Creating a LinkedIn credential might be a little bit tricky, but all you have to do is connect my account. It's gonna bring you the 2auth window. You just sign in the account you wanna post on. You give it allow. And then one thing that's very important, you wanna turn off organization support because otherwise it's not gonna work. And so now our resource is going to be post. We're going to have the operation create, post as person, and then person name. Just going to click your account. The text, we're going to grab that from Google Sheets. So we're going to map the content in there. Media category, image. Input binary field is going to be data. So that's the name of the file. And then I could pretty much just run this and it'll post it, but I want to add a Sheets node to update it. So we're gonna have update rows in sheet. We're gonna make sure we click the right credential, the right document, sheet 1. And then we only want to change status and post it. So let me get rid of the rest. Status is going to be posted. Note that the text must match. And then date posted, we can just do now. Although that might appear in a weird format, so we'll see. And if it does, then we can just change it. But for now, let's leave it like that. We're gonna need a column to match on. So from here, we're gonna use file ID just because that's gonna be different every single time. And we're just gonna map that from the trigger. So let me run this, and the post should be getting posted, and then the sheet should be getting updated. So I'm just gonna run it with the pin data that I have. Looks like it got posted. Let's go back into the Google Sheets. You see so that's what I was talking about, the format. And then looks like this didn't get changed because my mouse was over it, but it should be into posted. Let me go into my LinkedIn. I'm gonna reload my activity. As you see, there we have it. Sora 2 is reshaping social media credibility. Then we have a CTA over here. As AI enthusiasts, how do you see balance between innovation and safeguarding truth evolving on social media platforms? So this looks like a pretty decent post, I would say. In my opinion, more content would be better, but I'm going to delete this one and the other one because I didn't actually want to post about it. It was just for the sake of this demonstration and to showing you what's possible. And there you guys have it. As you see, it's not a very complex workflow to set up. It's just two automations, pretty much, two workflows. One of them creates the post, the other one posts us into LinkedIn, giving us that sort of human in the loop automation in which we get to decide what gets posted and what doesn't. You also can play around with whatever the form is. If you want to add different lengths instead of these ones, you can play around with that. But it was mostly to show you guys what's possible in case you're someone or you know someone who struggles on staying consistent on their content because they're too busy. This makes it very simple by creating infographics and being able to research on the most up-to-date data and also citing sources. So I'm going to be leaving the blueprints on the description. There's going to be a Gumroad link to where you can download them and try them yourself. The only thing you're going to have to do is replace the credentials and any API keys, but the prompts are going to be there. So let me know in the comments if you find it useful, and if you end up using it, you can send me a DM on LinkedIn with a post that you created using this. My LinkedIn is on my YouTube description. But if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and I'll see you on the next one.